If you were a car lover in the 80s, you remember the legends: Testarossa, Countach, F40. The posters, the raw power, the noise. But here's the twist: while the world was watching Italy, the most advanced supercar of the decade came quietly out of Germany. The Porsche 959 wasn't loud. It was revolutionary. Only 345 people ever owned one. The real question is, did we spend the 80s idolizing the wrong car? To understand the 959, we need to go back to the early 1980s. Porsche wanted to compete in Group B rally racing, an infamously dangerous and technologically unrestricted form of motorsport that gave us legends like the Audi Quattro and Lancia 037. The rules of Group B stated that manufacturers had to build road-going versions of their rally cars, what we call homologation specials. But Porsche, being Porsche, they didn't just want to meet the minimum requirements. Now, they wanted to create the most technologically advanced car the world had ever seen, a showcase of everything they knew about automotive engineering. Development began in 1981, and they unveiled the concept, then called the Gruppe B, at the 1983 Frankfurt Motor Show. Here's the interesting part. By the time the production 959 finally arrived in 1986, Group B rally racing had been banned due to several fatal accidents. The original purpose for the car no longer existed, but Porsche continued anyway, creating what was essentially a technological testbed on wheels. Only 345 were ever built, including 337 street cars and some racing variants, and they were absurdly expensive to produce. Porsche reportedly lost money on every single one, selling them for around $225,000 when they actually cost nearly twice that to build. So, was this the first supercar? To answer that, we need to define what a supercar actually is. Generally, a supercar combines extreme performance, exotic styling, cutting-edge technology, and exclusivity. And by that definition, the 959 certainly qualifies. But was it the first? The term supercar actually dates back to at least the mid-1960s when magazines used it to describe high-performance muscle cars like the Pontiac GTO. But for mid-engine exotic sports cars, many historians point to one car in particular as the true origin of the modern supercar: the Lamborghini Miura, which debuted in 1966, a full 20 years before the 959. The Miura was revolutionary because it was the first road car to feature a transverse mid-engine layout, housing a 350 horsepower V12 that could push it to speeds over 170 miles an hour. Its stunning design by Marcello Gandini and incredible performance created the template that supercars would follow for decades. Other contenders include the Jaguar XKSS from the 1950s, the Ferrari F40, which came right after the 959, and the incredibly rare Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale from 1967. But the 959 wasn't trying to be the first supercar. It was trying to be the most advanced, and in that, it succeeded spectacularly. Let me explain how. Let's start with what powers this technological marvel. The 959 features a twin-turbocharged flat-six engine producing 444 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. But this isn't just any twin-turbo setup. It uses sequential turbocharging. What that means is one smaller turbo spools up quickly at lower RPMs, providing immediate response, while a second, larger turbo kicks in at higher RPMs for maximum power. This solved the turbo lag problem that plagued turbocharged cars of the era, giving the 959 linear power delivery throughout the rev range. The engine itself only takes up the central portion of the engine bay. The large painted sections on the sides actually house complex cooling systems for the engine and transmission. The wheels on the 959 are another engineering masterpiece. These hollow-spoke magnesium wheels weren't just lightweight, they were also secured by a unique center lock system. But unlike modern center lock wheels, these have an additional security feature. You actually need to insert the ignition key into the wheel to unlock them before you can remove them with the center lock tool. This feature isn't found on any other car. It makes these perhaps the hardest wheels to steal in automotive history. Now, let's talk about the 959's most revolutionary feature, its suspension system. Remember how this was originally designed to be a Group B rally car? That's why it has an amazing adjustable ride height system. From inside the car, you can adjust the suspension height using a dial. These are 3 different settings, allowing you to raise the car for off-road use or lower it for high-speed stability. In 1986, this was absolutely groundbreaking technology. But that's not all. A small stalk on the steering column lets you switch between 4 different traction modes, shown on lights in the gauge cluster. Dry for normal driving on dry pavement, wet for rainy conditions, snow for icy roads, and locked, which provides a permanent 50-50 torque split between front and rear. One gauge actually shows you the real-time power distribution. The needle on the left shows what percentage of power is going to the rear wheels, while the right shows the percentage going to all 4 wheels. This all-wheel drive system, called Porsche Steuerkupplung or PSK, was revolutionary. Unlike earlier all-wheel drive systems that were permanent or manually selectable, the 959's computer could continuously vary the torque split between front and rear axles based on conditions. Even the body was cutting edge. Porsche used Kevlar composite for many of the body panels to save weight, an approach that's common in supercars today but was revolutionary in the 1980s. The 959 was also the first production car to feature tire pressure monitoring, a technology that's now required on all new cars sold in the United States. And it ran on specially developed run-flat tires, which allowed you to continue driving even after a puncture. Notice the hole in the rear fender? This was the first time Porsche implemented this design on a production car to improve airflow to the engine. It later became a signature element of the 911 turbo models and remains one to this day. Inside, the 959 was a mix of cutting-edge technology and traditional Porsche design. The seating position is similar to a contemporary 911, but look at the gear shifter. Before first gear, there's a gear labeled G, which stands for Gelände in German, meaning terrain or off-road. This is literally an off-road crawler gear in a supercar. It's designed for low-speed maneuverability in difficult conditions, a direct link to the car's rally heritage. The 959 also featured other advanced amenities for the time, like power seats with memory function, heated seats, and an in-dash chronograph for timing your laps. When the 959 debuted, it was simply the fastest production car in the world, with a top speed of 197 miles per hour. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 in just 3.6 seconds. Numbers that would be impressive even by today's standards, but were absolutely earth-shattering in 1986. To put that in perspective, a Ferrari Testarossa of the same era did 0 to 60 in about 5.2 seconds, and topped out around 180 miles per hour. The 959's direct rival, the Ferrari F40, would eventually beat its top speed at 201 miles per hour, but it was a much more raw, less technologically advanced machine. The 959 wasn't just about straight-line speed. Its advanced all-wheel drive system and aerodynamics gave it remarkable stability and handling. Its drag coefficient of 0.31 was exceptionally slippery for the time, and the car produced actual downforce at high speeds, something few road cars could claim in the 1980s. Now for the part you've been waiting for. What's it actually like to drive this technological marvel? The first thing you notice is that despite all its advanced technology, the 959 starts and drives much like any other Porsche from this era. The clutch is surprisingly heavy, but the gear shift is beautiful, precise, and mechanical. At low speeds, the 959 feels surprisingly docile. You could almost mistake it for a regular 911 if you weren't paying attention to the dashboard or the extra width. The visibility is good, and there's none of the intimidation factor you might expect from a multi-million-dollar supercar. But when you press the accelerator, everything changes. There's a moment where you feel the first turbo spooling up, and then the acceleration is still impressive even by modern standards. It just pulls and pulls with no dead spots in the power delivery. At higher speeds, the car feels incredibly planted. You can really feel that advanced all-wheel drive system and aerodynamics working together to keep the car stable. This is where you appreciate what made the 959 so special. It's brutally fast, but also remarkably civilized. In the corners, there's a bit more body roll than you'd expect from a modern supercar, but the grip is phenomenal. The steering is communicative in that wonderful Porsche way, giving you constant feedback about what the front wheels are doing. What's most impressive about the 959 is how usable it is. Unlike its contemporary rival, the Ferrari F40, which was essentially a race car with license plates, the 959 is genuinely comfortable and practical enough to use regularly, assuming you don't mind the repair bills and depreciation on your multi-million-dollar investment. The 959 represents a fascinating crossroads in automotive history. It has one foot in the analog past, with its manual transmission and relatively simple interior, and one foot in the digital future, with its computer-controlled systems and advanced materials. It feels like the bridge between classic supercars and modern ones. The influence of the 959 cannot be overstated. Almost every technology pioneered on this car eventually made its way into production Porsches and then into mainstream vehicles. The advanced all-wheel drive system evolved into the systems used in the 911 Turbo and Carrera 4 models. Twin turbocharging became standard on Porsche's turbocharged engines. Adjustable suspension systems are now common on luxury and performance cars. But beyond the specific technologies, the 959 changed how people thought about what a high-performance car could be. Before the 959, supercars were often temperamental, uncomfortable, and single-purpose machines. The 959 proved that cutting-edge performance didn't have to come at the expense of usability. You can draw a direct line from the 959 to modern hypercars like the Porsche 918 Spyder, which combined astounding performance with everyday drivability. Even non-Porsche supercars like the Bugatti Veyron owe a debt to the 959's combination of advanced technology and civilized manners. Today, the 959 is one of the most collectible Porsches ever made, with values between $1.5 and $2 million, and that value continues to rise as more collectors recognize its historical importance. So, returning to our original question, was the Porsche 959 the world's first supercar? Based on the historical evidence, the answer is no. The Lamborghini Miura, which arrived 20 years earlier, more rightfully deserves that title for establishing the mid-engine high-performance template that supercars would follow for decades. But what the 959 truly was is perhaps even more significant. It was the world's first modern supercar, the car that brought cutting-edge computer technology, advanced materials, and everyday usability to the supercar formula. The 959 wasn't the first chapter in the supercar story, but it was the beginning of a new volume. It marked the transition from analog supercars to digital ones, from raw speed machines to technological showcases. If the Miura created the supercar category, the 959 reinvented it for the modern era. And that makes it not just a fascinating piece of Porsche history, but one of the most important cars ever made. Driving the 959 today is a privilege few will ever experience. It's a glimpse into an alternate automotive universe where high performance and cutting-edge technology could coexist with everyday usability, a philosophy that now defines the modern supercar. Every time we look at this car, it's amazing how forward-thinking Porsche was in the 1980s. They weren't content to just make a faster 911. They wanted to redefine what was possible in a road car, and in that, they succeeded spectacularly. The Porsche 959 may not have been the first supercar, but it was certainly one of the most important. It set a new standard that the entire industry would spend decades trying to match. And that does it for our review of the Porsche 959. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.